Hello, everyone. Welcome to Google UK. I'm Alessandro. Yes, I'm Alessandro, Program Manager for the Developer Ecosystem team at Google. I'm very excited to be here today. Today we have Flutter Forward Extended event. What is it? You probably know already. It's like a community event following up the Flutter flagship event that was in Nairobi last week. Who was in Nairobi last week? Woo! We have some people. Don't show off. OK. And this is great. If you want to tweet about the event, here you can find some, get the QR code is at Google Dev Europe or Flutter Forward as well. Is like the hashtag. So this event is a community event, as I said, and the two amazing communities that brought these events are GDG London and Flutter London. So you will see some of the people of the community throughout the event. So we're going to have Renuka, we are going to have Sumit, and we are going to have Simon from Flutter London. These are all the organizers of this event, so you will see just some of them on stage. And I would like to tell you a bit more about Google Developer Groups. And anyone has been at DevFest London back in December? Yep. Oh, yes. That's great. So you probably already know about Google Developer Groups. These are local communities that are spread all around the world. We have more than 1,000 GDGs, actually. It's made of organizers, great developers who want to share more about Google technologies with the local community. And they're doing that for free, running training sessions, conferences, events like this one. So if you are not part of a GDG, please go on gdg.community.dev and find the GDG closest to you. We also, this is a great, actually, a quote of like what a GDG is. It's like the missing link that connects like academia, industry, individual, employers, and they bring all together in events and activities. We have all different programs. We have Google Developer Groups, Google Developer Student Clubs. If you are at university, please check also Google Developer Clubs. You can start one in your university. Women Tech Makers, a program to support women in tech and experts. So if you are knowledgeable in a Google technology and you love to share the knowledge with the community, this might be the program for you. So some housekeeping. So you can find the code of conduct on the website. Use the hashtag Flutter Forward Extended to tweet about the event. And for prizes, we have prizes. So visit GDG_London for more details. And now we have, if you want to see, can I go back? Yes. So if you want to take a picture, OK. The agenda. So we have like 3 amazing speakers today. We will start with Khanh, then we're going to go with Rodrigo and Jochum. We'll finish at 10. We're going to have drinks and networking. You might not be able to ask all the questions that you want directly here on stage, but you can talk to speaker afterwards and talk to our great organizers. How it's going to work for questions. So if you want to ask a question, so the talk is like half an hour, and then we're going to leave like 5 minutes for question. If you want to ask any questions, you see a microphone just over there. Just queue behind the microphone, and you can ask like a question to our speakers. As I said, 25 minutes, or someone is going to be a bit more, a bit less, and then 5 minutes for questions. And now I will like to have Renuka on stage. They will introduce our first speaker, Khanh. So a big applause for Renuka.
So I'm Renuka Kelkar. I'm the one of the organizer for the GDG London. And maybe anyone have attended the DevFest. So we have around 7 organizers together. We are organizing the event, and we are happy to collaborate with the GDSC, GDGs, and GDEs, and other community which work in the tech. So that is what. And today I want to introduce the Khan, and I think here the person who doesn't know the Khan. She's a developer relation engineer in Google, and you have seen her on the YouTube in the Boring Show with the Craig, and she's going to talk about the recap of the Flutter Forward, what we have done in Nairobi, and she will tell about how was the experience. So here to you, Khan.
I think I have it. Thank you, Renuka. All right. Hey, everyone. So like Renuka just so wonderfully introduced, my name is Khanh. I'm a developer relations engineer on the Dart and Flutter team at Google, and I just came back from Flutter Forward. And so my job here today is to recap an hour and like 20-minute keynote in 25 minutes. So forgive me if I gloss over some things, but feel free to ask questions. And of course, the keynote is also recorded on our YouTube channel in case you wanted to check it out. So here, without further ado, here's Flutter Forward in 25 minutes. Soon the screen button will push us to the next slide. OK, cool. So the current state of Flutter, just a quick recap here. So since Flutter's since its origin, there's been over 5 million Flutter developers who've experienced Flutter, and there's been 700,000 Flutter apps that has been released. And according to the GitHub Octaverse in 2022, Flutter is one of the top projects, top open source projects by contributors. That's 12.4 thousand there. So thank you very much. We have such a wonderful community, and I got to experience that firsthand, especially at Flutter Forward and here today, having been able to talk to a lot of you. Cool. And so the announcements from Flutter Forward, Flutter 3.7 and Dart 2.19. So what's new here? So there's been new enhanced Material 3 support. And so a bunch of widgets have been migrated from Material 2 to Material 3. There's a great demo of all the widgets that are available, and this has been migrated for you to try out if you would like to test it out for yourselves. Whoop, let me go back. That's weird. There's supposed to be more slides there. I don't know what happened to the other slides. OK, that is interesting. Oh, there we go. OK. And so Material 3, that is a code lab. That slide was supposed to be at the end. I think it got shuffled. But so there's a code lab for Material 3 if you want to go through the process of building a responsive app with Material 3. Adaptive layout. So now with Flutter, you can scale, you can resize your Flutter app, and it'll be more responsive in terms of layout. Menu bars and cascading menus. So now you can make it customizable. So for example, on Mac OS, it'll be specific to Mac OS, and it'll have that look and feel. And you also have the material versions as well. Impeller preview, so this is the Wondrous app. So it makes use of the Impeller, the new graphics rendering engine that we're working on for Flutter. So if you want to try the new Impeller preview, the Wondrous app is a great place to see that. In addition to that, there's the iOS release validation. So the tooling will do a lot of the checks that you want before releasing an iOS app. And DevTools improvements as well for Dart and Flutter. And of course, there's a bunch of other things that have gone on as well. Our community has been very busy with making Flutter bigger and better. But of course, it was Flutter Forward. So we're going to look at a bunch of things that are more forward-looking and what Flutter will do in the future. And so if you want to learn more about what's in this release, what's specifically in 3.7 for Flutter, I will also link to Kevin Chisholm's blog post about what's new in Flutter 3.7. And that goes in a lot more in depth with what's new in 3.7. So that's the blog post there. Cool, and I want to just take a moment here to plug a bunch of the amazing work that the folks in the community and the folks on the Flutter team at Google has put together for the Flutter Forward tech sessions. And so there's a bunch of videos online, and here specifically I called out a few that are related to the 3.7 release. So Rody and Liam made a great Material 3 tech talk about how to convert a design, Material 3 design, into a working app in Flutter. Justin and Greg made a great adaptive UI talk that talks about, well, how can you design an adaptive app in Flutter? Grant Skinner also made a great video covering how he created the package for Wondrous to do animations. And Chinmay's talk on Impeller, which we'll touch on a little bit more later on. And of course, there's the Material 3 adaptive UI code lab that we talked about before. Cool, so now the forward part of Flutter Forward. So the major themes here with Flutter Forward was breakthrough graphics performance, seamless integration, between web and mobile, early to new and emerging architectures, and continued focus on developer experience. Cool, so Dart. Let's start with Dart here. Dart, we introduced Dart 3 Alpha. So there's new language features, and one of the big ones that was covered was records and patterns. This one was really exciting to me. Back in the day when I was taking, computer science classes in school, computer language, that's cool. Okay, programming languages. And then I saw this wait, that is actually really awesome. So I'll just quickly cover the example here that undoubtedly Michael did a wonderful job of covering. So I'm going to try my best to live up to what Michael did at the event on the keynote. But so for example here, there's this get location function. And so here you return a list with the latitude and the longitude, right? So that's a list of doubles. And what you do is when you get the location back with that list, you pull it out using elements, the 0th element and the first element. This is great, but I have times where I've definitely forgotten, okay, 0, 1, okay, which index is it at? And so what you could do is create a location class and stuff everything in there and then just return a location object, which it works, but it's a little bit verbose. And so with records, what you can do, and you can tell with the records, it's similar to a list except it uses the parentheses instead of the square brackets. So you can return multiple values instead. So here it's 2 doubles there. And so you can return it and then you can access it using those $signs there. That's great, but we actually, I think, can do a little bit better. And so here, what you can do is actually with patterns, you can match it. So when it returns that latitude and longitude values, you can directly assign it to the lat and long variables, again, using those parentheses instead of having to individually access them. And if you don't want access to one of those values, you don't care about it, then just use underscore and you can drop it. And finally, with that, with the lat and long, you can see here, you can actually assign the values there as well after it's been declared at the top of the main function. And so that's just a quick highlight of records and patterns in Dart. But if you want more in-depth detail about all of this and JSON destructuring, Bob Nystrom made a wonderful, wonderful talk that is also in the Flutter Forward playlist. So definitely check that out. I always learn a lot from talking to Bob. And in this case, from watching his talk when I was reviewing it, I realized, break statements don't actually do anything in Dart. And then for this whole time, I've been writing break statements. So just things like that. But Bob does a great job covering that there. And next is sound null safety. So with Dart 3 Alpha, we're looking towards 100% sound null safety here. And so what this does, it will make just Dart easier to understand. And so now all code will run just in a single mode, and it won't be confusing in different modes where some code is null safe and other code is not. And so according to our numbers, it says that packages on pub.dev, I think 98% of the top 1,000 packages have already been migrated to be null safe. So that is absolutely wonderful. So this should be coming with the Dart 3 stable release later this year. All right, and so another thing that comes with the 100% null safe is the performance of it, right? So with Dart 1, this is what this getAge function looks like in machine code. And the Dart 2, the number of lines come down a little bit. But then now with Dart 3, it becomes just essentially 3 instructions, which is super, super cool. Cool, and risk 5, so new architecture support. So Dart is portable, And so we're introducing experimental support for 2 different architectures. So there's RISC-V and WebAssembly, which thanks to Kevin Moore, I've learned you can shorten it to just WASM. And so there's so those are new architectures that have been supported by Dart. And so Michael also did a cool demo of this little like portable terminal here. He built it, I think, in his hotel room, and he just happened to get Dart running on it, which is super cool. So if you want to see that, check out the full keynote for that live demo. And in addition to that, Max Lin, one of our wonderful Flutter GDEs, also made a talk called Tiny Flutter, the Future of Dart and Flutter on Small Devices. That was super awesome. If you check it out, he uses Dart to essentially program a groove box, which I've come to learn is a little box that's like a little keyboard, and you can hit it and play music, and it'll display a bunch of cool things there. So I highly recommend you check it out. And to learn more about Dart 3 Alpha, Michael has written a wonderful blog post, again, to recap everything that is coming with Dart 3 Alpha. So give that a read, and I'll go in a lot more in depth than I do here. Cool. OK, so now we'll move on over to Flutter. All right, so for Flutter web optimization, so a lot of work has been done to make Flutter work better on the web. So things like canvas reductions, making font size reductions, the amount of work to bring in fonts, deferred loading, and just improved concurrency. So again, WASM, so that's the ability. So far, Flutter on web has been compiled to JavaScript, and then you run it in the browser. WASM allows us to run in the browser without that JavaScript there. Element embedding as well, so this will allow you to run your Flutter app inside of a web page, a normal old HTML web page, just as another component of that web page. So I'll do a little bit of a demo, a show and tell of that towards the end, so we'll come back to that. And of course, pixel shaders, graphics performance is super important. So we had it on mobile, but now it's also coming to web. So that'll enable you to do some really cool effects with custom shaders. I'm not the expert on custom shaders here, but I know a lot of folks in the room here are. So we'll come back to that. And so this is essentially one of the effects that you can have with custom shaders, where you can have your GPU process each pixel before it displays to the screen. So that's super cool. There's also the vertical toolkits, which has been introduced. Previously, last year, we had the games toolkit, which made it easier to develop games in Flutter. And this year is the Flutter News toolkit, which makes it easier for you to bootstrap and build up a news app just right out of the box. So that's super exciting as well. All right, and FFI Gen and JNI Gen. So this allows for integration between your Dart code and the native platform code. So there's a lot of APIs, low-level APIs for platforms that, a lot of times you'll require platform channel code. And so with FFI Gen and JNI Gen, it's a tooling that will allow you to run a command, and Dart will automatically create the bindings or that glue for the cross-language interoperation and converting data classes appropriately, so that you can operate between platforms without actually having to do too much of that heavy lifting. And if you're interested, there's also a new code lab, which talks about using FFI in a Flutter plugin. So that's super cool as well. And now moving over to Impeller. I mentioned this a little bit before. But so Impeller is the new graphics rendering engine that we're working on as the alternative for Flutter. And so Jochum and Renan, I think you're in the, yep. OK, so these are the shader experts I was talking about. But so it looks super cool. So these are the what's possible with shaders. And so with Impeller, the idea is it will give you better graphics performance. And what you can do is just run with Flutter, enable Impeller to turn it on for iOS with just this flag. So ideally, we'll have it on by default in the next release. But for now, let's go ahead and talk about what it does. So the goal here with Impeller is to eliminate shader compilation jank, so have it not be glitching and all of that. So here you'll see a quick demo. So on the left is the default rendering engine right now, and on the right is with Impeller. So you can see with the default rendering engine, it kind of tops out at 7 to 10 frames per second, whereas with Impeller, you can hit basically 60 frames per second and still have everything be smooth. I also just love kaleidoscopes, so I really like this slide. All right, there you go. And so in the keynote as well, I didn't have time to demo this, but Leah did it in the keynote, and my jaw was on the floor. So she was able to essentially render a 3D dash completely in Flutter. And so she went into Blender, updated it, and then it just hot reloaded the model, which is super, super cool. I highly recommend you check out that demo if you haven't already. And here, you'll see in the middle, she also rendered a 7x7 cube of dashes all moving, and it didn't choke up at all, no glitching, and I was just absolutely amazed. And so finally, for what is Impeller? A lot of folks, I was like, what is Impeller? I took a graphics class in school, but I don't really know, what the difference is. So if y'all are interested, Chinmay did a great What is Impeller talk. A lot of it, I have to admit, kind of went over my head, so I'm going to have a lot of questions for him. But it is a great video, and it's really fun to watch. Cool. And so a few more previews I wanted to touch on. It wasn't a big part of the keynote, but the folks on the team also made these videos, and I thought it was really cool. So Kate Lovett has been working on 2D scrolling for Flutter. So out of the box, how do you get 2D scrolling without having to do anything hacky there? As well as Michael Goderbauer, who demoed for us multiple windows on desktop. So both of these demos, they actually showed off to the Flutter at Google team not too long ago at our team summit. And so it's really cool. They're quite funny as well. So I highly recommend that watch if you haven't already. And so just to quickly recap, new directions for Flutter and Dart. Again, GraphX is a highlight. Seamless integration was also very important. So access to early and new emerging architectures was a big highlight as well. And finally, a continued focus on developer experience. I don't know about you, but personally, when I first found out about Flutter, I think the developer experience was the thing that dragged me into this party, right? So that's also, of course, always top of mind as well. And finally, OK, so my show and tell for element embedding. So I'll just head on over to my computer here. And just a quick plug, if any of you are interested in seeing what's in the store for the future of Flutter, definitely check out github.com/flutter/samples. A bunch of the things we talk about today are actually available as samples in the repo, so you can test it out, work on it, poke at it for yourself, and give us feedback. But also, you can also just look at it and see how it looks, just to prepare for your app for the future. All right, so OK, I see my screen. Cool, so I'm just going to pull up element embedding. So this is going to be very similar to the demo that Tim gave in the keynote, but I put my own little sort of remix on it, if I may. So I'm going to let this run up a little bit. Do any of y'all happen to watch American football, by the way? Yes? One? OK, so this will be not as exciting, but imagine maybe, OK, I'm not going to call it soccer. I think I know we call it football here. So imagine if it's your favorite football team. So I'm an American football fan. I'm originally from Philadelphia, and I love my Philadelphia Eagles. I'm sure our reputation probably precedes us, but so I'm very excited. They made it to Super Bowl last night, and so I decided I wanted to make an app that counts the Eagles' wins. How many wins have they had this season, right? And so I made this app in Flutter, but then I wanted to embed it in a web page so that other people can have access to it, right? And so here, this is what element embedding looks like. So the app itself here, the Eagles Win Counter app, is just a Flutter app that I've now embedded inside of an HTML web page. And it's just, I put the app inside of a div, and it works. So here you can see the traditional counter app that's been remixed a bit for myself. And so I hit plus. So the birds have won 4 games thus far. And so you can do cool things like add some CSS to the Flutter app. And you can see here, so you can resize it, and the app will adjust accordingly. You can add a spin effect on it, and you can play with it there. Or you could even add it to a little device. And I can build a little landing page in case I want to start selling this app and have folks buy it or something like that. I can have a nice little landing page and put in a device and skew it a little bit. And of course, the cool thing is because it's element embedding, I can also control the state in the Flutter app with my JavaScript on the page, right? So here on the side, I can hit increment and it'll update the Flutter app as well. So that's super, super cool. And then of course, say here, I go to text field. Let's say I hit spin. I can still type here. There you go. And so even if it's moving, you can still interact with it. Looks awesome. And then here, again, it's another custom app. I can type, it'll count, and then I can still reset it and whatnot there. So that's super cool. And I'm just going to stop it from spinning for a second. That's a little bit dizzy there. OK, so I'm going to go back to this app. So another thing I want to quickly plug is this was my attempt to play with the new Material 3. So this is using the Material 3 theming here. I just gave it a primary color. That's the Eagles Midnight Green. And so then Material 3 just generated a color theme for me. And if I bump this up here, let's get this to 17. You'll see Jalen Hurts, our quarterback, does a little shimmy there, because if they win 17 games, that means they will have won the Super Bowl. So that's probably more about American football than you care to hear about today. But I went ahead and did it anyway. And so that's using the new animation package that Grant Skinner talks about in his Wondrous video that I mentioned earlier. Cool. And so that is my little bit of show and tell. So we can switch back to the slides, please. Cool. And I'm just go ahead and jump. And so again, like I mentioned before, if you want to test out, like some of these things are not quite available yet for you to test out, but for the things that are, you'll just have to be on master channel and make sure to run Flutter upgrade, and you'll be able to test things out in the experimental samples directory on GitHub. Cool. And so just to close out here, for more Flutter Forward, please check out the Flutter Forward playlist. I have a QR code there if you want a direct link just to see it. Hopefully that's convenient. I know you can also just go to youtube.com/flutterdev and find it, but it is there if you want to quickly access it. And so thank you so much for being here. I'm so very honored to be here. And so fun fact, I've never given a talk to this large of a group before. And when I talked about giving my first talk as a representative from the Flutter team at Google, I was like, I'm going to have a few people there, 5, 10 people, 20 people, like a very small, intimate group. But to have this many people here, it really makes this experience special for me. And so thank you so much. And thank you for being a part of the Flutter community. Oh, right, questions.
Thank you so much, Khanh,
Oh,
for giving
thanks.
this talk. This
Oh my
is
gosh.
from the GDG London.
Thank you so
London
much.
for you.
Nuga, thank you.
If you have any questions, you can come to the microphone here.
We have a question, but we are a bit lazy.
The last slide, just for the QR code, please.
Yes.
I had that.
Okay.
Thank you so much for asking, because I spent a lot of time looking up a QR code maker that would make a code that looked this nice. So I'm glad that at least one person made use of it.
Does it work?
Sorry, the lights are a little bit blinding, so I can't fully see you, but I think I can hear you.
Yeah, hey, thank you for the great talk, and thank you for everyone who is involved in making this happen. So thank you so much. My question is more about Impeller, the new graphic engine.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't look it up yet, but I keep hearing about Impeller iOS. Is it like specific for iOS, or is it something that starts as iOS and then it will go everywhere?
Yeah, I know work is currently ongoing for Android as well, but I think that for iOS, it's just the one that's ahead right now, and it's ready for folks to kick the tires on. So that's the one that we're talking about more. But I know Leah mentioned it in the talk as well. I believe that Android is coming, but it's not quite there yet.
Thank you. Let's offer search for me to do. So thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
So 1 minute. So you have asked the first question. So this is from you.
Woo!
It's a very basic question. So comparison between React and Flutter. React is more of component, right? You have a component ready and you can plug it into the web application. You can arrange it and you can reuse as many times. So when it comes to Flutter, is that the same model or very different?
Yeah, so I get it's similar in the way that, you know, for the example app that I showed you, so I built that Flutter app, like it's a completely separate Flutter app, and then within the HTML document, you have code that you just add, essentially, that plugs it in as another component. So it's very similar in that way. I haven't worked with React in a little bit, so I can't tell you, like, you know, like now if it's like it's similar, but I would say it's very close.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
So the reason why I asked is why Flutter over React? Yeah, I want to differentiate important features that is that should be considered to switch into or consider new development using Flutter.
Yeah, I mean, right now I know element embedding is still very experimental, so I don't think it's anything that we would say use it in production right now. But I think in the future, it's definitely something. It's a good thing to look at. Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ritu. I want to understand why we should use Flutter and not Kotlin and not Java. Why we should use Flutter more?
Yeah, I think ultimately it comes down to, you know, using the right tool for the right job, right? And in my case personally, I think I really like Flutter just because of its cross-platform compatibility. So for example, you know, I'm going to use an example. So previously, whenever I worked on web development, right? When I built for web, it was a progressive web app, and I could have it, you know, run in a browser. But with, like, for example, building for an Android app, you're kind of just stuck with, you know, using an Android app. But if that's what you need for, you know, your app, like, that's exactly what you should use. But in the instance where, say, a company is, you know, resource limited and they can only hire so many developers, you know, that cross-platform aspect with Flutter is super useful to have, right? You can have one code base and have it run across various platforms there.
And my second question is which language we use for designing, like in Android Studio, like for Kotlin we use XML, and in React we use CSS and HTML. So which language we use here for Flutter?
Yeah, so I mean, with Flutter, you can design it, you know, like Material 3, the widgets come just pre-designed, like to follow the Material 3 design spec. So you could do something like that, or you could design it from the ground up, just stylizing your own widgets, like whatever way that you want. So those are the options there, yeah. Or of course, Cupertino if you're on iOS, but I know we're talking specifically for Android here.
So it's like in React Native, I know a little bit of React Native in that if we want to do some native development, so we can go to a particular Android or iOS folders, and we can do some native development in there. If we want, like, if something is not supporting directly, React Native is not supporting some libraries or something for directly for Android or iOS, then we can do directly native development. So in case of Flutter, can we do native development also directly going to the folders?
So
like that?
Just to make sure I'm understanding correctly, is your question like, can you develop for native and Flutter as well?
Yeah.
Yes, actually, that's a very good question. So yes, you can. Actually, I'm going to reference the Flutter Forward playlist again. So one of our wonderful GDEs, Vivek, also made a great video about migrating Flutter apps. So he talks about the different methods in which you can actually develop a Flutter app, right? So you can have a Flutter app with native aspects to it, or you can have, you know, a native app and have Flutter insert into the native app as well. So if you check out his video, he covers essentially sort of what you can do with Flutter there.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Another question.
Hi there. So my first question is, has element embedding been tested to handle multiple apps, full-fledged apps?
That is a good question, and I have to say I don't know the answer to that. So for me, I've only played with it just with like the little prototyping, like the MVP on my desktop. But that would be a great question for the element embedding team and the folks there to see like if they have tested it. I'm not sure, but I know the fact that because it's in the experimental repo, that means that we definitely would not recommend it for production work.
That's great. So my next question is, when would it be ready for production? I think it's a great idea for like hosting portfolios to show to clients, and just profiles and things like that. So.
Yeah, that's a great question. I was actually thinking about, so for the test, I was going to do that exactly with a bunch of the Flutter, prototype apps I've put together, but I didn't have enough time. But I would say I believe that's supposed to be landing next release, but I can't remember off the top of my head exactly if that's like the date that we're targeting. But I would say it's coming soon.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Khanh.
Hey.
Great presentation. I have a question related to the web side of things. Based on the answers that you have given, is Flutter any way related to the web version of things? Like, for example, would you be able to create prototypes or products that use web as the complete? I know that it's an Android app or like iOS app that you can create through Flutter. What about web?
So if I'm understanding correctly, you're saying like, can we just build just for web?
Yes.
Right. Yes. So I mean, that has like, so with Flutter right now, so the element embedding that I showed you right now is experimental, right? But you can also just build a Flutter app and deploy it to web. In fact, a lot of the prototypes and a lot of things, I don't know, how many of you follow the YouTube channel if you've seen the Doodle Dash game that we put together a little while ago? So cool, awesome. Thank you for watching, thank you for supporting, and thank you for subscribing. Oh, no, man, now I sound like a salesman. Okay. And so we currently deploy to web just as a way to quickly share our prototypes and the things that we build. And so a lot of folks actually do build and just compile and just deploy directly to web. In fact, I think web is one of my favorite ways to share the things I've built with Flutter because it's just so fast and easy, especially with Firebase hosting. I just do npx deploy, Firebase deploy, and then just ship it off to the web. So yes.
And what is the compatibility of all the browsers? Is it compatible with every browser or does it have anything specific?
That's a very good question. I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head. I probably have to pull up some docs to tell you. Sorry.
Amazing. Thank you.
Oh, I'm back over here.
Hi.
Oh, hi.
So my name is Samir. So I just want to ask, how can the Flutter can be used for developing Web3 application?
Sorry?
Web3 application. Nowadays, we are in the Web3 place, right? So can the Flutter...
Sorry, I can't even begin to approach this question. I am not a domain, I don't know anything about Web3, so I don't want to give you the wrong answer here. So my answer would be, I don't know, sorry.
Hey, thanks for the presentation.
Hello. Hi, sorry, the lights are a bit blinding. I think, I know there was a song that talks about that, but it is actually very blinding.
Is there an ETA on stable rollout for WebAssembly?
Sorry?
A stable rollout for WebAssembly? I know Tim mentioned it in the Flutter.
No, so it's not in stable yet, and it's still something that's being worked on. A lot of the things that we talked here, sort of looking forward, it's still a work in progress, and it's not quite there yet. So if anything, it would be in master experimental phase.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks a lot. I think this is the last question. So
all right.
Thanks for your talk today.
Okay. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Khanh.
Thank you.
I'm going to be introducing our next speaker in just a moment, but I wanted to cover a couple of things. Myself and George are the primary, George isn't here today, primary organisers of Flutter London, and it's a meetup group, and it was going very strong just before COVID hit, and then we've kind of plotted off downhill. So I'm going to hands up, how many of you heard about the event today from the Flutter London meetup? All right, it's a fair few. Great to see you. It would please me greatly if the rest of you, if you're local, could sign up to the Flutter London meetup group if you're interested in Flutter after this event. Just wanted to let you know, we don't have a slide for this, but if you want to visit fluttercon.dev, there's going to be the largest Flutter convention in July this year in Berlin, if you feel like traveling. So anyway, apart from that, thank you for having us here. And Rodrigo López, do we have a slide? I think there's going to be a slide.
Yep.
Ah.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, I'll let you introduce yourself then. Rodrigo's a good friend of mine, and he's a freelance consultant on Flutter, and he's a creator of GraphX, which is an amazing graphics library built in Flutter.
Thank you. Thank you. Can you hear me? Hi. Thank you. So happy to be here. Like, this is a dream for me. So, I don't know. I'm excited. So, I'm from Argentina. You can tell, maybe by the accent. And I've been on Flutter for about 4 years. I started to code like 20 years ago or something. And it was a difficult experience for me at the beginning. I have a very old computer. My father had it. And I started with Dreamweaver. Dreamweaver, I think it was the name, like for HTML pages. And you know, I got like one client when I was 14 or something like that. And right away, I started to Flash. You know, back in the days of, I don't know how many know Flash, like Flash games. It's an old technology maybe nowadays, but OK, we have a few. It's something. Anyway, for me, it was like, whoa. You know, it's so amazing in middle 2000s or something to make such an amazing animations and graphics, you know. And you know, I started to build like websites at the beginning and banners, and it was a very cool journey for me. I met a lot of amazing people. Now, GraphX itself, it's based on this, right? Maybe this is a little bit boring, but this is the beginning of everything for me. How many know Flutter here, basically? Just to make a comparison. We have a few. Oh, we have one at the back. Nice, I know. Great. So it was a different technology back in the days. It's an imperative type of programming like Java and stuff like that. And it could create pretty cool experiences on web. Now, I worked with this for over 12 years or 14. So most of my professional life was around Flash, right? Yet, in 2018 or something like that, this is like a lot of technology that was built with Flash back in the days. Even Gmail, Google, a lot of technologies rely on this for the media, for file uploads, you know. So it was like a big deal for the ones that you don't know Flash back in the days. And a lot of games, actually. But anyway, my point is, eventually the iPad came out. Steve Jobs put the open letter to Flash, like we will not run Flash on the iPad or any iOS device. And basically, that killed the technology. It was super sad for me. But eventually, many years after, in 2018, I had a friend in Greece, and he told me, you know, Google is working on this amazing technology. Flutter works so good. And I didn't have a job, right? Like, Flash was already dead back in the days. So I gave it a shot. And, well, basically, I start working with Flutter and clone like an application we had in Flash back in the days because it was able to compile to mobile and everything, and clone it in one day. My first experience with Flutter was 1 day of development without knowing the technology. You know, I was able to recreate one application that probably took me, I don't know, about a month with Flash, right? So I was incredibly impressed with it. It was amazing. It had a little bit of issues, you know, on the iOS side, probably. I had to tweak native code, first experience for me also, going into native. But in 2 or 3 days, I got the basics of an app that I built in 1 month on Flutter. So I was totally in for it. It was amazing. I said, I have to go this way, right? I have to try Flutter. And this is how I started, right? About, I don't know, could be probably 3 or 4 months after it, I felt weird in Flutter because, so many years doing Flash, ActionScript, totally different way of coding, I had that feeling that I need to see if I can recreate the experience I had for so much time in Flash into Flutter. I know that Flutter had the potential for it. It's extremely powerful. And I gave it a shot. And basically, this is how GraphX was born. It was 5 days of experimentations got me into the core of GraphX. Okay, so the library was basically made in 5 days, or 7 maybe, with examples that you will see today here. I don't know, are any of you familiar with GraphX? Or maybe check on Twitter or something? Probably not, just 1 or 2. Thank you, guys. Anyway, it's a library that runs on top of the canvas, the custom painter, for the one of you that work with Flutter and try, custom painter. And obviously, it's inspired by the Flash API and has a persistent ticker. That means it runs all the time. Has basic management for keyboard and mouse and touches. And again, I don't know if it makes sense for you to make the comparisons with GraphX and Flutter. But basically, we have like a display list in GraphX that is similar to the widgets in Flutter, right? Now, we can check the slides later, maybe. But I will go first through the video of, I compiled this 2 days ago, so I'm sorry for this. I hope you guys enjoy it. This is basically what GraphX can do. I don't know if you can put the sound, maybe it's too much. It was cool, right? So, thank you. Thank you. So, OK, this is like a subset, right, of things that I built with Flutter, with GraphX. Through the years, I've been working on it for like 3 years or something. And everything just flow, basically. The examples, it's a compilation I made with also other friends that I had. But anyway, basically, GraphX allows you to replicate the Flash experience. Okay, so it's a totally different methodology of what you would do with Flutter. It's like Flash, basically. So you have to try it out to see if you like it. Basically, these are the basic stuff to initialize the GraphX scene. which basically takes a scene builder widget for it, and it's the only widget that GraphX has because all the rest of the code belongs to a different file, basically. It doesn't rebuild like Flutter widgets, so it has some sort of persistency and cache. So it works like a totally different application inside the Flutter application. This is amazing because of the Flutter versatility, right? Flutter allows you to compose anything with widgets, and it's true, basically. You can put apps, and it actually works. So GraphX has this versatility that you can actually make tiny components of GraphX. You don't have to make the entire application with it. So you can put it on a list, you know, a part of a banner. As Flutter supports more and more devices, we have the web, we have desktop. There are so many things to do, like the imagination is the limit, right? So you just have to give it a shot. This is more on the technical side of things regarding how GraphX works, which is different from Flutter. And this is basically the Flash analogy, right? We have a stage, like the main element on the scene, and we have a Cartesian coordinate system, which is not something familiar in Flutter, right? Maybe you can compare it with a stack and a position for the ones that actually try Flutter. But you have to declare actually the position and the sizes of the elements inside the GraphX scene. We don't have a layout management system in GraphX. So you are the boss, basically. You have to reposition everything, resize everything, and build everything. That gives you a lot of power as well. So for instance, we have the displacement here. Oh, obviously, this is the main concept of GraphX, like widgets, OK? We have the stage at the very top of it that you cannot modify it. You don't have to create it. It comes with the actual widget that you initialize. And we have the sprite, which is the main scene, right? You always need a sprite in order to enter into the GraphX world. And we have the concept of display object and display object container, which are two abstract classes for the display list. And basically, you can add childs into the sprite. And we have a lot of different types of display objects here. We have support for bitmaps, shapes, text, icons, you name it, even Rive also. So that's basically how you compose your scenes in GraphX. And we have a drawing API with the shape as well. So this is the sort of API you can expect from GraphX when you start working on it. So as you can see, it's pretty different from, it's maybe similar to Flame, right? Not at all? OK, but at least it's imperative. So yeah, that's about it. What it takes to actually make a rectangle might be like too much code compared to Flutter, but it gives you a lot of possibilities to actually redraw everything on screen. So basically, we have the concept of adding children into the stage and children into children, right? So we can compose a tree, pretty much like a widget tree, with display objects. Now, you can see here how we can reposition things, which are basic transformation, and all the APIs that we have available. There are actually many more. Currently, we just put together a pretty quick demo of all the things that you saw in the intro video on this website. If you want to give it a shot and try it, maybe some work, maybe some don't, I don't know. But we hope to improve it later. Now, this is the part where I want to show you actual things that we build with GraphX, not just demos. And this is basically a stock market app, obviously, as the title says. I wrote it like 6 months ago or 5 months ago, in about 1 month. And it's a component for a US company that they're making the desktop software, right? And they needed to manage multiple instances of charts, right? This is the cool thing about GraphX, that it supports the integration with the rest of the Flutter widgets, right? So you have the GraphX scene running in multiple places here, and you cannot tell, right? And it's pretty powerful. Like, I expected that GraphX didn't manage to actually go to 50 instances of huge charts on screen. We're talking about 5,000 bars, rendering. The people that check the stock market are really, really demanding, according to what I talk with the client. So I don't know, it was a good experience and it actually went well. And this is the second demo I wanted to show you, which we started like, what, three weeks ago or 2 weeks ago, based on the video by Simon. Okay. Basically, it's that. Now, what is interesting about this demo, it's that it's not 3D in Flutter. Everything is actually 2D, and it's pretty easy. I will try to post the code eventually, but we're trying to make a release for the game. Anyway, it's a demo basically for us. I just made it for this very event, and didn't manage to actually compile it. I put these videos like at 2 a.m. last night, so I don't know. I hope you like the style of it. That's Simon. Yeah. There are like 3 or 4 shaders running there. I was experimenting with them. So this is how it was made, basically. This is the first draft of the concept, right? We have support for sprite sheets. Just very improvised, but okay, you get the idea. So GraphX itself is not a game engine, right? I just use it for it because it's fun, right? GraphX is all about having fun. At least for me, it is, right? That's why I wrote it. I wrote it just to have fun. That's all. And I really hope that some of you maybe give it a shot and try to be creative with it. I think it's very powerful, the API that has. And it's proven by Flash, right? I didn't invent this. I tried to mimic the Flash API, and it was very successful for 20-something years. So I hope you guys give it a shot and tell me if you actually like it, You can join us to our Discord and Telegram groups. And, well, that's it. So thank you so much for this time.
Yeah, we have some time for questions.
Yep.
I must say I'm super impressed. Hi. Great presentation. Wonderful project.
Thanks.
The cool thing that I find about this is that actually I think many of us that work on Canvas try to build something to work with keyboard, with mouse actions and stuff like that. And I think you've done an amazing job, and I will definitely try it out. One thing that is interesting to me is that, is there any accessibility support in the API? All right.
No, okay. Not at all. This is the, it's just for drawing, right? There are tons of things that are missing. It's just a rendering API. I wish I could add something like that, maybe in time, But what you see right now on the repository is the thing that I basically built in this 7 days or 8 days period, I was very hyped with what I was seeing, the Flutter power, It's amazing. And I'm sorry, but for now,
all right, yeah, definitely.
Nothing.
I mean, the hype is visible, definitely, and I can't wait to try it out on my own. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, buddy.
Renuka, get a privilege.
So I have one question that I also love the Flash, and I used to do the animation with Flash.
Good for you.
So is there any way that like Adobe Animate also creates the animations? Can we export something using this package?
Export from what?
Adobe Animate.
Oh, still a thing. I didn't know it was still alive. So Adobe Animate was the Flash authoring tool to create. Oh, maybe you know, right? No, probably not.
Okay.
No, I think not.
Okay.
It was based on it, you know. It's just the ActionScript API. But I think you have the sprite sheet support.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Okay.
It would be amazing to actually have the Swift file running into Flutter.
Yeah.
Amazing, but I don't know.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One last question, yeah.
That was really cool. Thanks for sharing.
Thank
my
you.
first question is, in terms of the performance monitoring, can some of that be done within DevTools, or is it entirely managed externally? So
Performance monitoring of graphics.
Of graphics, yeah.
No, it just runs on the canvas. I mean, there is no external tool into the performance monitoring part. You can have a ticker running like an FPS counter. You know, the Skinner actually built one. But what you see on the performance monitoring, it will be what you see on your entire application, right?
Yeah.
You cannot go, there is no debugging tools in order to get into the sprites or display objects in graphics. So you just draw stuff, basically. Behind the scenes in the canvas, it's just a lot of drawing commands. But the API itself, it's, you know, usually you use a lot of print. Actually, GraphX doesn't have a print command, it has a trace command like the Flash ActionScript, so you can append a lot of arguments into it, but no custom profiling for it.
Cool.
For now.
My next question is, so my next question, so other than that, sorry, I completely forgot my next question. Don't worry. My next question was, is there a sample app or like demo?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, if you go into the repo, pretty much everything that you saw at the beginning, it's part of the examples app.
Is there a tutorial?
No. This is your tutorial. This is the first time I talk about graphics, so I will try to put one on YouTube pretty soon. There is a documentation for it, but usually with examples, it's like way too much information. You have to dig in and just start copying and playing around. It's about having fun. But yeah, I will try to put a tutorial. Basically, any ActionScript tutorial will do, because it's a similar API as well. But yeah, I owe that. Yeah, pretty old.
All right then, thank you very much. Give a hand for Roy here.
Thank you.
Sorry? Go back to the slide with the QR code.
I can go back?
Go back to the slide with the QR code. For the demo. The QR code.
Do we have?
Let's go back.
Does it work?
The QR code, the one before this?
Yes.
If you guys want to, if you guys want to check out the demos, you can grab it from the QR code. Shortly to be up here.
Yeah.
We're going to take a 10-minute break, and no, we're not doing a 10-minute break anymore.
Right away.
So much good content here. I don't think we need a break. Do we need a break, guys? No? Okay, let's continue then. Yeah, let's continue all the way to the food.
Thank you.
Yeah. So guys are enjoying today? A lot of good content. I think amazing recap from you. Next talk is from Jochum. Jochum, did I say it right? Yeah. Yeah, and you're kitted out. I just was looking at the title. It was interesting. Open Sourcery. Yeah, so it's like, are you wearing your wizard hat and going to talk about some Sourcery stuff? Yeah.
I forgot my wizard hat.
Okay.
That's.
Yeah. So over to you, and yeah, enjoy the talk, guys.
I mean, I do need the thingy.
You need a clicker.
Oh, I got it. I'm so sorry.
Oh.
Sorry.
Thank you. I mean, is this my slide? I don't know if it's my slide, but that's my slide. That's me. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to talk about open sourcery at VGV, and That means I'm going to talk about open source. So it's probably a little bit of a different talk that you have just had from like Rodrigo or from our Google representative here. I'm sorry, I'm really bad with names, so excuse me for that. My mic is already failing, wow. Can you guys hear me now? Awesome. Shall I just repeat what I just said? I'm going to talk about open sourcery at VGV. And open sourcery, that means I'm going to talk about open source, which also means I'll be doing a bit different talk than anyone else has done. Because while I will be touching on the subject of Flutter, it will be a bit more of a broader topic for the community. But before I get into that, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Jochum van der Ploeg. I'm from the Netherlands. I'm an open source engineer. Yes, they pay me to do this. At Very Good Ventures, which is a company from the US, but we're like international. We do a lot of Flutter consultancy, and we now also have an open source team, and I'm hired as an open source engineer. My friend here, Hanan, who is also with me today, is also on our open source team, and we have a lot of fun, including doing this event. Next slide. Okay, so what is open source? I would like to know how many people think they know what open source is. Okay, awesome. That does make my open source heart quite happy. I added a few subjects, topics, however you want to call them. They're a bit broad, but basically open source is decentralized. That meaning the code that you write is available to anyone to use, anyone to fork, to clone, or whatever they want. It can be reused, it can be extended, it can be well, basically it's community driven. So anyone, once they see your code, they can do whatever they want with it, depending on the license. I'll be touching on that in a bit. But it's bigger than just software. How many of you, when you raised your hand just now, thought it was about software? Okay, at least one person. Oh, okay, a few persons are not lying, so I love that. Open source can be anything that's open sourced. It's available to anyone. It could be designs. It could be documents like contracts, like how to write a contract. It could be licenses, like to license your open source, whatever your project is. Those licenses are often also open source. People can look at them. People can have opinions about them, create their own version of them if they want. So open source is more than just software. And it's all around us. Like, I assume a lot of you know a bit about Flutter. Flutter is fully open source. It's number 3 now? Yeah, number 3. Yeah, so, and that's awesome. Like, we use open source products almost daily. Like, a lot of people, you probably have Android phones. It's open source. Some of you may use Linux. Also, well, depending on the Linux distribution, open source. And that's awesome. Like, we are just doing all of that in our free time, most of all. Like, it's open source is really cool. And it's available in the public eye. So that's also what I meant with like the public availability here. It means everyone can see the source. That also means that you have to uphold a certain standard quite often. Like, people will judging you, or people would like, oh, I don't like this. But if they don't like it, they can just fork it and do whatever they want with it, depending on the license. That can be quite scary, and that's why we have the licensing. And the licensing is basically, like, we have different types of license. I won't go into all of them, but we have like the MIT license. That means I wrote this, you can use it however you want. The only thing I ask of you is that you at least credit me for it. If you want to clone it, if you want to change it, that's all fine. But I, as a maintainer, am not responsible for whatever you do with it. And there are different licenses that do different things, and some of them even allow you to hold the IP. So open source doesn't mean free. It could also mean that the product that you're creating is available for people to buy or to use through a subscription. That means you could create an open source company. And there are a few out there. One of them is GitLab. I'm not sure if anyone has heard of GitLab. It's the open source version of GitHub. And they have basically open sourced the whole product, which is also called GitLab, which is kind of annoying. And that product has an enterprise version. And they work with companies to host their version for them, and that's how they get paid. But it has been built by a community that's behind it. They now also have a lot of engineers working for them, probably also maintaining it, but it's an open source company. And we have Canonical. How many of you know Canonical? Well, awesome. You all know it's probably the company behind Ubuntu, an operating system that, as far as I know, is open source, which is really awesome. Again, people are using this and people are contributing back to it, and they are not entirely sure how they make money, honestly. But they do. They make money out of open source, which is, again, really awesome. And we have another Linux company. I did press the button, but it didn't. Yeah, there it is, Red Hat. How many of you know Red Hat? How many of you know what Red Hat does? Okay, a lot less. Well, I didn't know it either, so I asked a colleague of mine who has done some work with Red Hat, and they provide open source technology for enterprise companies. Things like JBoss, OpenShift, and Ansible are just a few products that they created. Everything they do, they try to open source it. So if someone asks them, like a company, hey, we want to have this really awesome thing, they'll be like, oh, we can make that for you, but we will be open sourcing it. And then they will have a system on top of it to make money out of it. But their first product was just another Linux distribution called Red Hat. And that's also where their name came from. So there are a few companies out there. I think Infotasis could be considered an open source company. If you guys know the Flutter, in the Flutter community, know that company. I don't have a slide. I know someone from Infotasis here, and it's a bit awkward now, but that's fine. I'll just go to a more important slide, and that's VGV. Very good ventures. We are not an open source company. VGV is a consultancy company, but we do use a lot of open source software, like Ploeg and Flutter. They are all open source packages and other kinds of things that we use on a daily basis. And basically at VGV, they were like, okay, but we are doing this, so we should probably contribute and give back to the community and also help out the community with our knowledge and our standards. So they created the open source team. And that team was, as I just mentioned, me and Hanan and Felix Angelov, the creator of the block library. And he does a lot more stuff, but he technically is part of our open source team. And he's an awesome guy. And he was also the main driving force behind creating this team. And honestly, I'm really proud of being part of this team. We have done a lot of things. It's part of our culture, not only the Flutter community, like everything we do is open source, but also like the VGV culture. It's awesome that there are companies out there that are willing to put money in giving back, because the open source team, we do not make any money. Like, we are probably wasting a lot of money, but by giving back, it makes it a lot easier for a VGV to be like, this is a good reason to do open source. So if you're working for a company that doesn't actively contribute back, make that as an argument, like, we are using it, so why don't we give it back? We have the resources. Well, some companies have the resources. So please, please just make sure your company does that. It's not mandatory, but it's really useful for the community. VGV, our open source team, is also community-based. So that's meaning like we use packages from the community and we want to give back to the community. So we try to help maintain it or like contribute back whenever we see issues and that kind of stuff. But also our own packages, of course, like Dartfrog. What's not a good? The Very Good CLI is probably not a good one. I'm not sure how many people have used the Very Good CLI. Okay, a few people, awesome. Like, a lot of the work that we've put into that is only possible thanks to the community. People have been contributing back as well, fixing documentation, fixing code, fixing performance even, that we didn't even know we had performance issues, and then this person came along and said, found some performance issues, and well, now they are fixed. And we didn't have to do anything for it. Open source is really powerful like that. And because we are a consultancy company, we have a really close feedback loop. So everything that our team does can be immediately tested, because quite often we do something because our client services team at VGV needs it. And then we try to open source it or give back to whatever package it was. So open source is at VGV is really an integral part. Yeah, that's correct. What do we exactly do? Well, this is what we do. We maintain stuff. We have Very Good CLI, which is our CLI tool for creating templates based off like things that we have created before to make it more easier. We have Dartfrog, which is like a really fast backend that we have been building over the last few months. But we also maintain, in a sense, Flame. Me and Hanan, we are Flame maintainers. We are hired by VGV, and they have given us time to just work on that. Ploeg, Felix Angelov, he created Ploeg. We are using block quite a lot. It's one of our key standards. So we also want to contribute back to that. Mason, another thing that Felix created, like he creates a lot of things. We use that inside of Very Good CLI. So we try to contribute back to that as well. And there are a lot more of things that we do. I hope the QR code works. It didn't work for me, but I hope it works. And otherwise, the URL at the bottom is our open source GitHub. So we have our private GitHub, no, it's not private, but a separate GitHub profile just to keep track of all the things that we do. So that's at least what we do. Now we come to the open source part, like the part that you guys can work at. How to become an open sourcer. Like there's this book from Prince Harry. I'm not sure who it is, so I just Googled it. I found this. Oh, I thought it looked good. How to become an open sourcer. Well, again, I put some things on it, but it's basically openly discuss your ideas. If you have an issue or whatever, you can create an issue. If you see an issue on a package that you love and you know the answer to it, share that knowledge. Like, openly discussing those things is really powerful for the community. I would highly recommend to just go through your favorite packages, look at issues and be like, hey, I know the answer to this question. Or hey, I know how to fix this. Or hey, I can provide a reproducible example because I faced this in the company's app or whatever. Those kinds of things are also open source. You don't even have to write any code, well, except the reproducible example, to provide any kind of part. So you can become an open sourcer without putting a lot of effort in. Creating content, it's another one. If you write blogs or videos or you create, yeah, I already said blogs. I don't know why I said it twice here. But creating content, like videos, like articles, even tweets, are part of like the open source part. Sharing your knowledge, again, like how many of you are Android developers before becoming a Flutter developer? A few. How many were iOS developers before becoming a Flutter developer? How many of you were Flash developers before becoming a Flutter developer? Oh, yeah, more hands than I expected, honestly. You have knowledge that is really powerful for the community. Maybe even some of you are Windows developers before becoming Flutter developers. You know things that an Android developer might not know. And you might need that knowledge in a Flutter. Sharing that knowledge is really powerful. And again, improving documentation is one of the key features. Documentation makes a package great. If you see a typo and you can fix it, you should fix it. It's still open source. Adding context is obviously even more useful, but you don't have to, obviously. Like just fixing a typo is, in my opinion, already helping me a lot because I hate typos and I make them a lot. So I see the speaker notes right here and I see a few typos and it's annoying me. So we'll be going to the next slide quite soon. Last but least, contribute to the projects you love. Like writing code, helping out, etc. That is really important for you because you're using it, but also for the maintainer. If he sees or she sees or they see that someone is using their project, that gives them motivation, that can help them so much working on it. I can know because I have like 100 gazillion packages and nobody uses them. Next slide. You might have seen it in the previous one. I wrote Harry with like a few dots because I made an acronym out of it just because I could. I'm not going through all of them, obviously, but like humans are maintainers. Well, maintainers are humans. Like I turned it around just to have the H in there. Please be nice to them. Like in the end, they are quite often not getting paid to do any of that, except if you're me or Hanan. So you don't have to be nice to us, I guess. But all the other maintainers, please be nice to him. Please be nice to Rodrigo. He has done a lot of cool stuff, but he has done it most of the time in his free time. Always open issues with detailed information. Just as I said, reproducible examples, all that kind of stuff. It is really useful for a maintainer to see. Well, respect and reply professionally. Obviously, that's. I mean, we are a really open community. We are a really nice community. But if someone is like, "Oh, I don't like this. It sucks. You suck," well, I'm gonna close the issue. I'm sorry. That's not really nice of you. And hey, I did go through all the points. Your contributions matter. Like, never forget, even if just opening an issue and 5 seconds later it gets closed with like, "Oh, this is already fixed," or "We're tracking this somewhere else." Don't take that personally, because quite often maintainers have a lot of things to do aside from their project. And if they are a bit short in their answer, then maybe they were in a bad place, we don't know. But your contribution does matter. In the end, they will remember, hey, someone found this issue. It might be more important than I thought. So your contributions always matter. We always see you. Again, it didn't work. This is a shameless plug, so I can be here. Very Good Ventures is a consultancy company. And as you can see here, that's on the left side, someone from marketing. Then it's Hannah, another person from marketing. Then it's me, and then it's Felix. That's the OSS team and people from the marketing team. Like, it would be really awesome if you could like follow them on Twitter, like our projects on like the open source side of things, but also on GitHub on the VG Ventures account. That helps us track of the stuff that we do. Is it useful? Is it important? I mean, I'm not going to say what. I mean, Pinball. Check out Pinball. That's a really good game that we made. It uses Flame, so that's the only thing I would say. Like, check that out. Everything else, you can ignore it. No, it's Very Good Ventures. It's most people. I don't know how many people here know Very Good Ventures. I hope everyone, because we are sponsoring the event. Come on. No, that's fine. This is just the least important slide in it. The next slide is the most important one. We do a live stream about open sourcery. It's basically me, Hanan, and Felix, just talking about the cool stuff that either we are doing, we have found, or whatever. We're doing it once a month. We had our last one somewhere in January, a few weeks ago. The next one is 15th of February. We're going to do at least 4 of them and then just see like where we're going to go with it. So this will be our second one. It would be really awesome. You can just join it. We'll be talking about a lot of stuff and you can just ask us questions all the way through it. Last time we showed some things off with a very good CLI that Hanan did. We did some Dart Frog stuff and some random stuff that I did with, I don't know, what did I do again? Oh yeah, my slicing sprite stacking engine would have been a better talk maybe, but yeah, honestly, that's it. I am the only one that doesn't have a thank you slide. I just noticed. You had a thank you slide, Rodrigo had a thank you slide. I don't think I had one. So I don't dare to press next. So I don't know what the time is either. Are there any questions? And I hope there are a lot so I can fill up the time.
Yeah, we have time for questions, yeah.
Awesome. Any questions? I see one here. I mean, I could give you my mic, but then I can't answer, so. Let me put this away.
I'm Shoria, and I had a question about Flame. So I know that Flame's new version was released like a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, the 1.6.
So version 16, so 1.6. Yeah. So what is the next step for Flame? I was gonna ask.
If you're going to ask, is it 3D? Then I will say no. But the next step, well, I believe our main next step is getting our camera components, like this new experimental API to allow for multiple cameras in the same scene to be active at the same time and have really fast rendering and that kind of stuff. That's our main goal to get to the next stage. We want to pull it out of experimental and make it the default, which would be another breaking change. So we're not sure yet how we're going to do that. And we're trying to focus back on like Forge2D, our physics engine that we have ported from Box2D. Because Box2D is getting an update, it's getting a lot of new features and improvements, and we want to port them into Forge2D. So as far as I know, that's our current roadmap. But I also haven't joined any of our planning sessions from the last few months. So I might also be completely wrong. But maybe Hanan, you can speak to him after the thing. Maybe he knows a bit more than I do.
Thank you.
But thank you for the question. Oh, another one there.
Thank you. Firstly, cheers for the talk. That's really cool. It's really great that VGV do so much in open source, so that's dope. How much of your roadmaps are influenced by internal needs versus open source community needs? Because I'm sure there's going to be loads of people that raise an issue saying, oh, it'd be great if Block did this, but then actually it'll be you guys having to maintain it. You must have trade-offs about accepting pull requests versus stuff that you see as tech debt.
Yeah, so that's a good question, honestly. Like, I can't give a good percentage on like what we do, obviously. but quite often we do prioritize like the internal needs above like the community needs, because in the end, VGV pays us to work on the open source packages that they need. But quite often, because we're a team of 3 people, like one person would be actively doing whatever the client needs is, unless it's like a really high priority and it's like it broke like a really important client's app or something. So quite often one person would be actively working on that, and then 2 others would just be going through triaging and prioritizing all the open source things. And especially if we get PRs, we try our best to put them higher up, because reviewing takes a lot less time than writing the code. So, and we do try to like keep the numbers of open pull requests and that kind of stuff low. Not saying we're great at it, but we'll try it. So I would say it's like 50-50 then in that sense. But that really depends on like what kind of project we are working on and like what the client services issues are. So it could vary from month to month. But overall, every month we do have like an internal roadmap. This is our goal. This is what we want to reach for the community at least. And that's what we then focus on. We do have for a few of our packages, by the way, the roadmaps available. They are in the repository, so you can always check out what is planned for, like, for instance, Dartfrog or like Block. So those things are always available.
Cool. Thank you
for your question. Any more? Oh, awesome.
Thanks for the talk. Yeah. Really appreciate it. Ooh. Give you some stuff. Thank you. And we'll give you the rest of the stuff. So thanks everyone for coming in today.